You want to tell us about what's going on in
Yes.
Striketober?
Okay, so how do you like this name, Striketober?
I like it.
I think
It's a good
anything we can
hashtag.
put in an ober and make it a, like October surprise.
Strikeober. It's a good hashtag.
Ober, sober October. I don't know.
Sober
But what we're talking about right now is Striketober, which means that there are worker strikes happening across the board. 10,000 John Deere workers in Iowa have gone on strike to protest their working conditions and their pay. There are more threats for strikes in pretty much every industry across the board. Amtrak is threatening to strike. Southwest pilots are threatening to strike. Southwest has had much disruption this week, and they've kind of pulled it off like, no, it's just weather. We're okay. No, our pilots are fine.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is they're lying. Because
Well, I don't know if they're lying. I don't want to say that, but they have not told us exactly what's going on.
Something fishy. We reported in the newsletter, something fishy is going on with Southwest Airlines. Like, why are thousands of flights canceled when all of these other airlines have normal flight patterns? What weather suddenly in the Southwest is causing all of these disruptions? It turns out it's these workers who are, tired of being taken advantage of. And
What's so interesting, though, is that this is a class of workers who still needs to work. They still want to work, right? And so these are not part of this 400,000 people who just dropped out of the labor force. They want to stay. They're saying, hey, keep our jobs here in America. We're willing to work, but we need some sort of basic human conditions here. It's interesting that they don't want to be overpaid, they do want to be overpaid. Everybody wants that.
Yeah.
They don't want to be overworked. They don't want to be taken advantage of. They don't want overtime that they don't get paid for. So President Biden was able to get a union agreement for the shipping and the infrastructure, the supply chain problem that we spoke about all week. But he's been mum on any of these other labor strikes, right?
I mean, this one particularly, the ports, right? So they were able to get the Port of Los Angeles up and running at 24-hour capacity, nonstop. But they're still going to have to, come to some sort of labor agreement. Like, how are you going to get all of these people to work around the clock so that everyone can get cheap crap in the United States?
Yeah.
It was interesting to watch, if you dive into some of the reporting on this, it was interesting to watch like how quickly the White House kind of came out and was all over this. We got to make sure that everyone gets gifts for Christmas. And if you look at it, like, people aren't like really suffering for this kind of stuff. There's not a shortage of, there's a shortage of everything. But we don't really need the stuff that the White House seemingly was running out and saying that we were really worried about, making sure you get these cheap plastic toys from China on your, underneath your Christmas tree.
But GDP is based on consumer spending, largely, right? They need
Right.
us to be out. Isn't it you that told me that FDR he moved Thanksgiving back a week because he wanted to extend the Christmas shopping season?
Mm-hmm.
That's actually true. I looked it up.
Right. See, I know
You
some
speak
stuff.
the truth most
Wait,
of the time.
wait, you were fact checking me?
I might have done that.
It's not a shortage, it's a warning.
So, yes, because in most countries around the world, the Christmas season starts December 1st, right?
Right.
But Americans, we get an extra week and a half because where we place Thanksgiving, it has to happen exactly after Thanksgiving. And so the more we go out and shop, the more robust our economy is. Even if we're shopping for cheap plasticky crap, right? It makes a difference. We have to be doing that. And so obviously the president is motivated to get goods into people's hands to exchange money.
I just find it so unbelievable that you've got like companies like you've got, John Deere, you've got these companies that have these massive profits this year, right? John Deere, all of these, we had Kellogg's, you had Frito-Lay. They're working like crazy. These workers are working 80-hour weeks with no days off, right? No days off. And these companies are swimming in profits. And I have to say, I find it also bizarre that there's just almost no mainstream media coverage about this story at all. Very little. The only place that we've seen some coverage, I have to give props to Good Morning America, actually. Can't believe I'm saying this out loud.
But why do you think that is? Do you think that people are, like the mainstream media wants us to blindly buy things without any connection to
Let's go follow the money.
source?
Let's go follow the money, right? These big billionaire media corporations don't want there to be any awareness of sowing the seeds of discontent that out there. Like, they don't want their workers suddenly saying, you know what? Why am I working at 2 a.m. and why, hey, we should get together. I'm working crap hours here at this CBS station or whatever else. These big media companies, they're making billions of dollars, right? So yeah, this is garbage. Why am I being? And it maybe gives this awareness about workers that they don't want. They don't want to promote.
Because you think that strikes will, because that could spread like wildfire
Yeah,
at a
they're
time when we
anti-labor.
can little.
They're anti-labor. They're anti-worker. These billionaire media corporations, they want to pay workers as little as possible, don't you think?
Right, but I don't understand your connection between why the media specifically doesn't want to cover this.
Because they're run by billionaires. I mean, all of these companies are run by billionaires. Do they want to pay their workers more? And having this awareness about worker discontent.
So it's about media sponsorship and, okay.
Yeah, and also think about this, right? Think about chip commercials. Let's just talk about Frito-Lay, for instance, or Kellogg's, right? Or any of these other sponsors that are Amazon, or any of these other sponsors that send money to CNBC, or spend millions of dollars in ad revenue on Fox or CNN, right? Or I don't know, just think any of those commercials that you see on mainstream media, right? Now imagine they're Frito-Lay, like, ooh, those are Pringles, or whatever, chips, and then in 1 second they're showing a commercial for Pringles, and they come back and they say, there's workers are upset with the working conditions at the Frito-Lay plant. Wait a minute, didn't I just see a commercial for Pringles? They're not going to spend money on advertising on these channels. That's my
Okay. Yes.
Anyway, one station managed to do it. Good Morning America managed to actually cover this story. So I want to play how Terry Moran did it. And I thought it was some really good reporting. Watch.
Strike at John Deere, just the latest in a wave of labor stoppages across the country. There is a new militant spirit in the American workforce. Workers want more, and they're willing to strike to get it. This morning, 10,000 workers at John Deere hit the picket lines in Iowa, Illinois, and Kansas. They argued that even as the agricultural equipment company's profits grew by 61% in recent years, and their CEO's salary grew by 160% during the pandemic, their pay has actually been cut.
We need to let them know that they can't continue to take our money and take our money and take our money.
Across the country, labor is on the march. In California and Oregon, 24,000 nurses and other healthcare workers at Kaiser Permanente voted to authorize a strike over pay and better working conditions. Meanwhile, union workers at Kellogg's cereal plants have been on strike for more than a week, angry about long hours, including 7-day work weeks.
Our number one priority is to get back to the negotiations table and reach a contract so our employees can get back to their jobs and their lives.
And soon, Hollywood may see a walkout. 60,000 film and TV crew members could walk off the job Monday over what they claim are unfair working conditions.
Our hours are really grueling, and we need not just rest between the workdays and over the weekend, but an actual meal break during the day.
And across the country, a record number of workers are quitting their jobs. 4.3 million Americans, or 2.9% of the workforce, left their jobs in August. Many are looking for better work conditions and pay, especially with inflation on the rise. Several forces are driving all of this. As the pandemic comes to an end, companies are seeing sky-high demand and very tight labor markets. They're having trouble filling jobs. Workers notice that top executives and bosses are getting paid. And so for the first time in a long, long time, workers have the upper hand. Robin?
And those executives and bosses, they worked from home during the pandemic. They did not go in with masks on their faces. They barely put on pants and took all their Zoom meetings, right? And
they were asking employees to go make crappy cereal, on the front lines, right?
With masks on and do it for longer. So is this an inflection point in the American labor force?
I think so.
Because one, we need workers. No one can hire. The ones that are working are saying, we'll stay here, but treat us like human beings.
Right.
And so...
Well, look at Amazon, right? So Amazon wouldn't allow union workers or workers to unionize in Alabama, right? And now we know because of Canada's favorable union laws, like Amazon workers in Canada are forming a union. So the United States is set up structurally to be anti-worker. And until President Biden says that he wants to be the most pro-labor president, so far he's shown quite a few signs that is the case. Good for him. I will give him support on that. And you've got people like Bernie Sanders and others saying it is time for a change. These workers, we cannot have this massive wealth in disparity between these CEOs making tens of millions of dollars and these workers who are working 80 hours a week on the front lines. They can't take bathroom breaks. They have to pee in bottles, like in the case of Amazon, and they're making crap wages, and they have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to put food on the table.
And the way that they do it, these executives, is subtle. It's not like they say, hey, Clayton, you made $15 an hour, now you make 12. What they're saying is, we're not gonna pay you for time and a half. So in the case of the previous strike, just last month,
Frito-Lay, Kellogg's.
Yes, I think it was. What they had told them is that we still want you to work 50-hour weeks, but instead we'll give it to you in 4 12-hour days instead of 5 days with some time and a half. So they had to work the same amount of hours, but they decided to not pay them time and a half. And they're saying, but I was making more doing that same amount of time. And so why, if I'm giving you that same amount of time, can't I make more? They don't want to pay time and a half, right?
It's ridiculous.
And so they're like, but I have been used to, I'm giving you the same amount. This is an exchange. Like, you should give me the same amount, right? And they're saying, oh, but we're giving you this extra day off, which they don't want. They want to be able to rely on some kind of livable wage.
Right. I mean, I go back to the famous George W. Bush speech on stage. Grover's upset about this, where this woman says, I work 3 jobs. I work 3 jobs. And George W. Bush said, let's give it up for her. That's uniquely American.
Right.
Like, he missed the irony of this. Like,
yes.
Uniquely American? That she has to work 3 jobs to put food on the table? No, that's...
And it's not, by the way. A lot of countries have people who have to work more than 1 shift. So.
And did you hear him say, and now that the pandemic is coming to an end?
Right. Yes. Now that that's right.
Who
can
said
you
that?
get that, and I will do this public
You
thing?
want me to actually go get the door?
Well, I have a friend that's in the IATSE, and she's a videographer, and it's interesting that as their strike is coming up, what the production has done is, because they know the strike is coming up, they've ramped up everything, so they no longer get lunch breaks. They're working 12 hours straight through. They call them rolling lunches. They'd rather pay the meal penalties, which is one of the things that the IATSE is trying to get increased, is like these meal penalties. But because they know the strike is coming up, this particular production is working them 12, 14, 16 hours, no breaks, no lunches, just straight on through. And it's like, so, but the thing about the unions is what I was talking with her, is like, there's these other unions that are actually backing this strike too. And this is something I think that we should kind of keep an eye on, is if one of these unions strikes, the other unions may follow, just because, like, solidarity in labor,
Well, we talked about this on the show last week. Remember when we talked about what happened with the McDonald's? It was a couple of weeks ago here on the show. We talked about it. Let me know in the chat how many of you remember this story where I covered the sort of history of the McDonald's situation in it was Denmark, right? It was I believe it was Denmark, and the McDonald's, they didn't want to pay their workers in Denmark, and out of solidarity, a whole bunch of all of the other industries around this particular McDonald's started basically saying, we're not going to touch any of your products coming into this port. The paper cup manufacturers, all of them. They're like, no, if this has anything to do with the McDonald's, until you pay them an actual living wage, and they're paid $22 an hour. They're $22 an hour, so they can work, and plus they get benefits. They get health benefits in that country, so they have health, and they get $22 an hour, because all of the other, it wasn't a law, but they all kind of came together and said, no. It was like a neighborhood strike. They're all like, nope, sorry, we're not going to allow this kind of stuff to happen. And I think I would love to see more of that happen in the United States. But in the United States, that is illegal. That is illegal to do that. You can't have you cannot go on strike in solidarity with somebody else going on strike. Isn't that garbage? I mean, I think it's garbage.
Several years back, when there was the dock workers, I don't think it was the Teamsters. I remember that the dock workers have their own union, but they were going to go on strike as a government shutdown was looming, and the government was just like, no, you actually can't. And there's some jobs where they can just be like, no, you cannot strike because you're too vital to our economy. And so the government could just make it illegal for that union to strike.
That's crazy.
So like
great. You
dock
gotta
workers
take off.
don't have that power.
Take off your little bralette, buddy. Rover was going crazy, so thank you for wrestling that
Oh,
down.
yes, to get your new Apple Watch.
Okay, let's not talk about that right now.
Who is spending? I didn't know that you bought that.
Thanks for subscribing to the channel. You can also become a channel member by going to morninginvest.com/join, where you can stick it to the mainstream media and support independent journalism. We're able to bring you the stories that you won't see on any of the major billionaire-backed networks. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time, everyone.